appointed hour, I call the meeting to order. Is that better? Do I start, you know, want to start again? No. Okay. I'll call the meeting to order. And can we have a roll call? Roll call, sir.
Certainly. Dr. Ruth Cox.
Present.
Trip Ure.
Here.
Jim Bisbee.
Here.
John Blackwelder. Absent.
He's resigned. Is he not? He resigned.
No.
Good.
Peggy Broadway.
Here.
Tony Bryant.
Here.
Ellen Sheridan is excused. Annette Stone.
Here.
Candace Sullivan.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, sir. I call for a motion to dispense with the reading of the minutes.
So move.
All in favor, I need a second.
Second.
Second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the vote is cast. So let me talk about the hearings here. The Historic Preservation Commission is a public commission appointed by the City of New Bern's Board of Aldermen. It is responsible for preserving and safeguarding New Bern's locally designated historic districts, downtown and Riverside. And this is based on the U.S. Department of Interior standards, state standards, city ordinances, and New Bern's historic guidelines. Two of the major tasks of the HPC include approving applications for a certificate of appropriateness and preventing demolition of historic structures due to neglect. The HPC holds a quasi-judicial hearing on an application for a certificate of appropriateness. The Commission hears sworn testimony and evidence provided by the applicant, by parties who received notice of the hearing, and by others who can justify that they have relevant evidence and are directly affected by the application. The Commission cannot consider comments based on personal likes or dislikes, hearsay, or personal opinions that cannot be directly related to specific historic guidelines. Likewise, commissioners shall refrain from stating personal opinions, personal likes or dislikes, or hearsay during a hearing. The Commission's decision on an application is based solely on testimony and evidence presented at the hearing that directly relates to the historic guidelines. Sir, can you swear in anyone who wishes to speak tonight or give evidence tonight? If you come forward, sign up, and get sworn in. We only got four people out here.
Okay, so if you're going to speak at all this evening, please come forward and speak. You may or don't have to speak, just come forward, but if you might. All right, so if you all just raise your right hand. Just swear to tell the truth to the best of your knowledge. Yes, sir. Okay, now you can go ahead and sign.
Okay.
Oh, is your screen going on the Fritz?
Mine's not.
Just strange noises coming.
It's just noises coming from
Okay,
back
maybe
here.
the last one. If you're having trouble with the screen, let me know. We have a way of fixing it.
Okay,
And if it's annoying, we can fix it.
okay. Here's how we will conduct the hearing on a COA application. The HPC administrator provides an overview of the application, which you can see. The applicant or their representative presents the application. Proponents and opponents who receive notice of the hearing can present evidence. Rebuttal is allowed by the applicant and by proponents and opponents who receive notice. Others who can justify that they have relevant information and will be directly affected can present evidence. The HP Commissioner presents the staff's findings and recommendations. The applicant or their representative has an opportunity to make final comments on their application. Commissioners discuss the evidence and may ask for clarification from the applicant or the presenters. The chairman calls for a motion to approve or deny the application with stated findings of fact. The motion is discussed by the commission. The chairman calls for a vote on the motion by the commission. A COA can be approved with conditions, or continued, or denied. So can we have the first application on our agenda for tonight? And that is
823 Pollock Street.
Pollock Street, exactly.
All right, we'll start here with the first page of the application. You can see it's for the property 823 Pollock Street for John and Tonya Barrett. There is someone here in the audience for that? Okay. It's not. We can move them to the end of the agenda if you'd like.
Okay, do you have some information that they are coming?
We have told them, we've told them.
What time?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
all right,
And
well, we'll
and-
move them to the end at this point in time.
And this
then.
is an application that was continued from the last meeting because they couldn't make it.
Okay. All right, so the next one will be 226 New Street. And if you want to, Matt, explain the situation we have with the paperwork.
Sure. Actually, in the last 5 minutes, that has changed.
In 5 minutes, it's changed.
Yes.
Life moves on.
Yep. So we do now have a notarized note from the applicants authorizing Mr. Mo Howland to be their authorized representative for this evening.
Okay, is that person here?
Is Mo here?
I don't see Mo.
Okay. Let's move them to the end.
Okay, we don't have Mo. Okay, I know that we have the people for Middle Street, Pollock Street, Craven Street, right away people. That's you, all right, we have them.
Good thing you showed up at 5:30.
Okay. You all are lucky, this never happens. I mean, this is the first time we don't have two people in a row happen, okay? So can you bring up what they want to do?
Definitely. So here's the first page of their application. So essentially the vast majority of the project is in the right-of-way for the city of New Bern. So they listed the property owner's name as City of New Bern, but Segra is the applicant. And there's quite a large extent to the project, although our concern is actually quite minor. But nevertheless, what? Yeah, so we have,
Item D.
yes, hold on. Oops, page up. What were you saying, Tripp?
Annette was
He's
asking
responding
which
to me.
project we were,
Oh, I'm sorry.
so I think we're on item D,
Oh,
234
D, oh,
Middle Street.
sorry.
Oh, right, yes.
Yeah, the first two people aren't here.
So, I don't, did we receive an owner's authorization from you from the city?
All paperwork is filed
Yeah.
by our contract.
Um,
The engineering firm.
So, who would have sent it?
Identity,
Mhm. not sure one was submitted.
Are we looking for a city permit?
No, authorization for you to represent the city for a project in the city right-of-way. On the other hand, does the utility,
Easement.
does the utility have,
Buy permits for the city, even if the city comes back and says we can't do it then.
right, no, so this is a whole different question, so, I guess essentially the city owns the street right-of-way, and you're looking to do work in the city's property. So, we can't just let anybody willy-nilly decide to do work on anybody's property without their consent. And that's what we were looking for, was that owner's authorization from the owner, in this case the city, to allow you to represent the city, the owner, to do the project that you're proposing.
I guess there's a misunderstanding. We don't just need to apply for the city permits once they are.
That's right, it's different than a permit.
Right, I got
So,
it.
however, I don't know if there's a nuance presented by the fact that utilities supposedly, as far as I understand, have a right to use the public right-of-way anyway. But I don't know if that supersedes.
Can we approve it contingent on getting that approval?
Unfortunately, in order for the applicant to have standing, they have to evidence that they have a legal right to do the things that they're trying to do. So in this particular situation, we have a utility. The person or entity that owns the dirt is the city of New Bern. So we would need verification from a person who has the authority to speak on behalf of the city to indicate that they support or they authorize for the utility to exercise that right on their property. So it might be that we can just hold this matter open, and we might be able to satisfy that requirement here momentarily. Do you have another application?
So you're saying move them to the end of the agenda now too? Okay. Yes, we have one more, and I didn't see Mo came in. Who are you?
John Harrison, 823.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, this traffic.
The first applicant has now arrived, but
Okay, so what are we gonna do with these people right here?
we're gonna move them to the back of the agenda, and it sounds like she's gonna make a phone call to find out.
So just a thought,
Authorization
John was like,
issue.
Matt, just as a thought, oftentimes that responsibility comes to you. You just maybe need to have some authorization
Yeah,
from somebody else.
right, and I think I've seen this for, that the Public
So-
Works or
Yeah.
the streets people sign off on this.
So just a suggestion,
Yeah.
if that can work out, so these folks don't have to come back here yet again.
Okay, so we're gonna wait on you all. And we've got 823 Pollock Street here.
That's correct. And we
Okay.
also have 407D, which would have been the fourth application.
He needs to be sworn in.
Well, let's do 823 Pollock Street, since we're first on the
He needs to be
line.
sworn in.
So
You need to come forward, please.
if you will come, yeah, and sign in.
Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth to the best of your knowledge? I do. Okay. And then just-
It's over here.
Address. And Matt, I didn't sign for that. Oh, okay, thanks.
Okay, so can you bring back up or bring
Yes.
up 823 Pollock Street? So now, Commissioner, we're on B. We're going back to the beginning, where we started. You with us, Peggy? We're going back to B. Okay? Just hold on there, or you can have a seat, because he's going to present it to us to look at, and then we've got to go through some stuff. So
Okay.
you can stand there if you like, sir, or
I
you
don't
can
mind
just have a
standing
seat.
Yeah, I'll stand. I've been
Okay,
sitting all day.
okay, you can stand right there, that'll be fine. That way we know where you are.
Okay. Somebody's screen again?
Yeah, it's back here, it's doing funny things. Is it behind us doing it?
It's in the
All right.
video room.
So here we have the first page of the application for 823 Pollock Street for John Antonia Behrens. And you can see they have their description, the project description, they have the referenced guidelines, a detailed list of materials, they've provided photographs, they're the owner, and they've signed the application. So this is a shot of the gate that you're proposing, correct?
Yeah.
Can you see the screen?
Yeah, and I sent the staged photos
Yep.
to you.
And so we also have the back of that gate. And then we have the existing condition. And then we also from the side. Whoops. And that's it. So you had more photos.
I did. We actually staged what the gate would look like. And let me just-
How long ago did you send that?
let me just check my email real quick.
Must be one of the 221 unread emails
I'm sure
that
you
I
get
have.
thousands.
So,
So it would have been to,
and sent by,
your name, right?
yeah, but what's your email address?
JC.
EEH, there it is. Maybe a different email.
I sent it to myself, so
Oh.
you never got them. I replied back to myself.
Go ahead and send
I'll
it.
just forward it to you right now.
Yeah.
If you can type it in there.
Shall we?
I apologize for that. Check my check.
Yes. We can go over the rest until, for example, the next piece is the zoning and inspections report real quick, and we'll probably hear it on my computer when it comes in. So this is the zoning and inspections report, and for them, the zoning administrator states that it meets the requirements of the land use ordinance, there it is, and it will not require a building permit according to the chief building inspector. All right, so now we'll go back to the email. All right, sometimes computers can be pretty amazing. So, oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's it.
all right, and above here, another shot.
Yeah, I just took a couple of shots from different angles to try to give you an idea of what it looks like, but,
Can you guys see that okay? I can.
that's the size of the fence. And
It's just setting in place, it's not
It's just
actually
setting, yeah.
installed. That's what it used to be a couple years ago.
And that was a couple years ago.
Yeah. Okay. So, that essentially concludes our summary. If you would like to, we have our recommendations are available.
Okay. So are there any conflicts of interest over this gate at this house from anyone on the commission? Hearing none. Are there any issues with the application's completeness? Hearing none. So the application has been presented. Sir, do you want to add anything else than what's already been said?
No, I mean, not if there's no questions, I'm good.
Okay,
Thank
all
you.
right. Are there any notified proponents in the audience? There's nobody behind you, so it's only this one other person over here. Sir, what one are you here for?
John,
Yeah.
he's for,
Temperature down, hopefully.
You're Avenue D? Okay, so that helps me. So there are no proponents, there are no opponents in the audience, so we can move on down. There's no rebuttal necessary. There's no one with relevant evidence and has standing. So we can go on, sir, to the staff findings.
All right, perfect. Okay, so for this project for John Antonio Berendt at 823 Pollock Street, the historic property name is the Alston Charlotte House. It's a contributing structure. In the inventory, it's indicated as built mid-18th century. So one of the oldest houses in town. Georgian style, 1.5 stories, 3 bays wide, 2 bays deep, raised entrance stoop, exterior and chimney, steep gambrel roof, and 3 shed dormers, none of which is really relevant, but that's the description. And then Sandbeck has nothing relevant to the wall and gate opening. So 823 Pollock Street, the project is to include installation of a new 6-foot-high wood gate for the driveway in the primary AVC. So we submit the following historic district guidelines are appropriate to this application. For fences and garden walls, 2.5.1, 2.5.2. For signs, 2.8.2, for the purpose of indicating where to install the gate into the masonry.
Yes, okay,
That's to be installed into the mortar joints.
yes.
Masonry 5.1.1, metal 5.3.3 and 3.4. For paint 5.4.2, 3 and 4. And statements of reason based on the information contained in the application and staff's judgment are: the project is located in the tight weave development pattern. Proposal is a garden wall modification and gate project. 3, the proposed design, components, and materials meet the requirements of the guidelines. 4, the zoning administrator and chief building official have reviewed this project and commented accordingly. And 5, the application is not incongruous with the guidelines. So staff recommends the commission approve this application to include installation of a new 6-foot-high wood gate for the driveway in the primary AVC with the following condition: that any fastening for the gate structure to the existing brick and stone wall shall only be embedded into the mortar joints, not into the bricks or stones.
Okay, thank you, sir. There's nobody in our audience with testimony from the state, city, or government body. Sir, do you want to make any final comments?
Just thank you for the opportunity.
All right, so we'll have a discussion for the commission members. Let me say to those of you who may be watching this, I don't want there to be any confusion that this has an address of 823 Pollock Street, but this gate, if this is Pollock Street, this gate is around on the side. This gate is not on Pollock Street, although Pollock Street is the name of the house. It is around the side, and as you saw that, there's already a brick wall there and the opening, but this is not on Pollock Street itself. Just so, if you're watching this, you're not confused by the address and where this gate is. Okay, commissioners, does anybody, we've seen this at design review, does anybody have any other comments, any questions you want to make at this point in time?
Color, I thought there was discussion that it would be white to match the fence.
Yeah, so once it's installed, we'll do it white, and then we're gonna do some picket tops to try to match
Match the existing
the
fence.
yeah, the fence that's on the wall there. Yep, correct.
You're gonna have it match what?
So during the proposal stage, that we discussed painting it all white and then
Yeah.
putting like little crowns on top of the fence to make it look like a picketed kind of fence. So it, like if you go back to the
Yes.
pictures, there's a picket
Yes.
fence with
Yes,
the
yes,
points on
okay.
it.
Okay, so we'll need to add that to the application, because that's not in the application as stated, is it anywhere?
Madam Chair, I did not see that in the application. However, the applicant can amend the application at any time.
Yes, yes.
So that may constitute an amendment.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
So whoever makes the recommendation, you need to add this little bit to the recommendation. Okay, so yes, I was gonna ask that question too, because we did discuss that. So you're okay with that, which we discussed?
Yes.
Okay, does anybody else have any comments? Peggy?
Yes,
And
I
then-
have yes.
Okay, what's your
So
question?
the gate that you set in place, that's, like, you've not already, that was just a sample? Like,
Oh, no, so, we actually obtained it and then we learned, like, the process. And
so you're gonna
it-
have to, like,
So it's been sitting.
retrofit it?
So the previous was a swing gate and it was up in the middle of the driveway, so you couldn't actually park a car when you
Right.
closed it. So the proposal was to move it down and have it slide, that way you can get a full car on the driveway.
But you've already bought this gate, and you're gonna have to go back and put little points on top of it? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we'll retrofit them somehow. I was probably like bolt them in, screw them in.
I
Your
mean,
what?
I think painted white might be.
I was more concerned with the white
The
than
white,
than the
white
shade.
might be
but-
okay, but for you to have to go back and.
Whatever you guys
retrofit it.
prefer, I mean, we kind of like the white idea ourselves, but, I mean, if you guys are good with the arch on it and not putting the picket tops on, it'd probably be less
I think it would
maintenance
be
down the road.
harder, I think it would make it look, when you have to go back and retrofit it,
Yeah.
I'd be okay with it just being white.
Yeah, I think it would be better to leave it, but paint it white.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I mean, we actually, my wife and I prefer it being white ourselves.
Okay, so we're going backwards a little bit in that you don't have to have the pickets, but you gotta paint it white. And it'll have a black, edge on it like it has now?
You won't be able to see it from the outside because the frame is behind the wood.
Well, it looks like, if you look at the photograph.
You might be able to see it from the side, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's where I'm looking at it from the
That's
side.
top.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry. And we can paint that white too.
So this will be a sliding cantilever type gate.
Yes.
Your picture shows it on the front of the wall,
That's right.
okay?
Yeah,
Is
so it
that-
will slide in front of the wall and then
Okay,
slide back across the driveway.
and so that means there are some components that'll be on the sidewalk side of the wall that will carry the gate, correct?
There will be one post on the very right side. That's the main post. It has two little rollers that keep the gate in place. It's kind of a
Right.
freestanding. Yep. I didn't have the post out. The post.
Yeah, well, I mean, post is okay, I just want to confirm there's not a structure with a top and bottom rail that when the gate is closed, you're gonna see a bunch of metal work we don't see in
Yeah. No.
in your mock-up, because that's what I usually see.
Yeah.
You know, if it's on the back side of that wall, doesn't concern me at all.
So you will see two rollers
Mm-hmm.
that hold the gate in place.
There is a picture that shows the gate from the back.
Yeah,
It's original.
So I took some of the manufacturer photos that was in the earlier ones, and that shows the back of the gate. But that one's actually a power-driven gate. This one's going to be a manual gate, so we're not putting a machine down there to open it with chains and stuff. It'll
So
just
it's
be a
rolling on the
slide.
ground, it's rolling on the ground, it's not rolling on a rail, is that right?
Yeah, so there's a little track. It's a little
But it's
piece
a
of metal.
Okay,
There it
Here
is.
comes some more.
I
There
get
you
you.
go.
Yeah, so there you go.
So there's the track on the floor. Now, that bar and that machine off to the right, we won't have that.
Okay, and so this is a similar installation
Yes,
somewhere else.
yes, yes, it is. It's the manufacturer's photos.
So you've got to add the track as well, which we haven't seen in the picture.
No, the track,
So this gate, when you roll it and it's on the track, it's not gonna fall one way or the other? This is a big gate, metal gate.
so that's what these rollers do.
Yeah.
So there's like a post,
So
that'll be behind the gate.
there'll
with
be
the
two
rollers.
posts and two rollers between the posts
Yes, sir.
with the gate. So
Yeah, so it'll go through the rollers, and that's what holds it in place on the
Alright.
track.
So-
And then there's a post behind it.
Is this what we're seeing in this photograph, in the upper right?
You can see the rollers right there, on the far right there, right?
Oh, this thing.
I can't see anything in front of me.
That right there we're
That's the
talking
post and
about.
rollers.
See, that's the thing. Huh.
There's a post on,
Yeah, on the back side.
And this one rolls inside the
Okay.
gate as opposed to outside.
all right, not to belabor this, will there be two leaves or a single leaf? I think what you're showing us in the sample picture are two leaves, which conceivably will
mean by
work out
leaves?
okay.
are they set
Oh, no, yeah, so it bolts together to make one panel.
one?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so, okay.
Yes, sir. It was shipped
I know
in
what-
two panels.
Are you clear on what you asked?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you're okay?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions at this point in time?
Madam Chair, this isn't a question, but just for the record, I know this project came before you all in design review. The audience who may be watching tonight doesn't have the benefit of that conversation, so it might be appropriate at this stage to share some of that conversation so that people have context for why a 6-foot gate might be appropriate under these circumstances.
Is there already, what's the finding of facts? Do the findings of facts say that there's a 6-foot fence already? Wouldn't that be?
There was an existing.
There was an
You
existing
create your own
6-foot.
findings of fact.
Well, a statement of reason, whichever.
The statements of reason do not have that in there yet.
So it has to do with what is in front of us, with the pillars and how high the brick fence is that's already there. So this is not for those that are watching, and we've had this same situation probably a couple of months ago with a house down here near the water where the people wanted to put a gate from their house over to this fence, and this fence was a brick fence that was 6 foot. How high was that fence? 6 foot
7
something?
feet.
7 feet tall. So we can't ask them to go and knock down that fence. It's not their fault that fence is that high. But they had to have a gate that could accommodate that fence. They couldn't just put a small fence up there. And so we had to accommodate what was already there. So we are accommodating here to what we have to work with. So we're not going to ask them to go and make this fence that's in their backyard 6 feet, which is what we normally require if it's a new fence. So that is what we discussed. And it may not be clear to those who are watching that the pillar on the left, the big, I guess it's a square pillar, comes further out toward the road than the other pillar, the other fence that's on the other side.
Yeah, we do have one photo.
So I don't know if you have a better photo of that.
Right there.
So this is another, so that's a good, right there, you can see that. So he's also trying to accommodate the structures that he already has to work with. And we're trying to work with him with that. Is that what you wanted me to discuss?
There was also an existing gate that was in that height range. So it's a replacement in kind.
Yes, ma'am, those are appropriate facts. I think you noted that there were comparable examples within the district, the height of the existing fence, the fact that there was a previous gate there about the same scale. I think those facts in the record can support certain findings of fact.
Yes. Okay, all right. Right, do we have any other questions, any other comments at this point in time? Are we ready to vote? Okay, who would like, I'm gonna call for the motion, who would like to make the motion, and be sure you include in the motion that the fence is gonna be painted white?
I'll do it.
You're gonna do it, thank you very much. Candace?
Okay, so I move that the application for 823 Pollock Street to be not incongruous with New Bern's Code of Ordinance Sections 15.411-15.429 and New Bern's Historic District Guidelines based on the following specific guidelines and findings of fact. Fences and garden walls, 2.5.1, 2.5.2, signs, 2.8.2, masonry, 5.1.1, metal, 5.3.3, 5.3.4, paint, 5.4.2, 5.4.3, 5.4.4, and finding of fact, based on the information contained in the application, the project is located in a tight weave development pattern. The proposal is a garden wall modification and gate project. The proposed design, components, and materials meet the requirements of the guidelines. The zoning administrator and chief building official have reviewed this project and commented accordingly, and the application is not incongruous with the guidelines, with the condition that the gate will be painted white in color.
Okay.
Second,
We also had this suggested, the fastening condition at the bottom there, you see on the screen.
Of where the,
And also a condition that any fastening for the gate structure to be existing brick and stone wall shall only be embedded into the mortar joints and not into the brick or stones.
okay, do we have a
second.
We have a second over here, sir?
And so I would like to offer one other condition, Candace and Jim, if you'll accept it. I suggest that you have the people installing it for you provide a shot drawing showing all these structures that are needed and submit that to staff. And then staff can determine whether we need to talk again.
I actually do have the installation guide. It's a DIY or DIY. DIY.
So you're installing.
Yes, but I do have that material available that I
Well,
can send.
regardless, and I guess public comments closed at this point. But Candace, if that's acceptable to you, I think it'd be appropriate to add that kind of language.
With the third condition, that any installation structures would be submitted to staff for further approval
Before installation.
before installation.
Second or agrees.
Okay, we got a second on that as well.
Thank you.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Hearing no, then the motion passed. Can I have a motion to approve the COA?
So moved.
Okay, do I
Second.
have a second here?
Second.
Second here. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, you can have the COA can be approved. Understanding that once you get all those pictures and everything, you've got to contact him again before you start.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
You'll have a better looking fence. We
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Yeah, have a good evening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so now you're telling me that we have what we needed from 226 New Street, but we don't have the person here who's going to present it. Is that what you said? You got the piece of paper?
That's correct, Mo is not here.
So they're not here, okay. So you were going to find out about
We have two
Middle
options.
Street, Pollock Street, Craven Street.
Wait, we have two options with regard to 226. Are you going to just wait and see if Mo still shows up?
Yes, we can wait and see if they show up after Avenue D. If not, then we'll have to decide if we're going to continue them or what we're going
All
to
right.
do.
So moving on to the utility.
Madam Chair, I was able to make contact with our Assistant City Manager, Marvin Williams. Mr. Williams is present in the City Hall courtroom and can be sworn and offer testimony to your satisfaction about the city's authorization of SEGRA to move forward as the applicant.
Thank you. And you're okay with that?
As long as there's sworn testimony and there's evidence in the record, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So, Mr. Williams, can you step forward, please? And raise your right hand. And you swear to tell the truth, to the best of your knowledge.
I do.
Okay. You just sign your name and your address.
And Madam Chair, in the spirit of efficiency, I'm prepared to ask Mr. Williams a question or two just to lay that foundation on the record if you'd like me to.
I would like you to, yes, ma'am.
Mr. Williams, if you would state your name and your, how it is that you're employed for the record, please.
Marvin Williams, Assistant City Manager for New Bern.
And Mr. Williams, in your capacity as the Assistant City Manager, are you familiar with SEGRA's application to install a utility in downtown New Bern?
I am.
Does the City of New Bern, by and through the City Manager's Office, consent to the New Bern Historic Preservation Commission, HPC, hearing the application that has been presented by SEGRA as it relates to the project?
My last interaction with the email with them was regarding, they presented us some examples of project that they've done previously. We reviewed those. It was with our Public Works Department, who indicated that they still wanted to review if it was going to fit into the design that we already have, not to distract from our current visibility in our sidewalks. To my knowledge, they did not come to a definitive answer as to how they were going to do that, and I think they also had the question whether or not they could have an alternative route that would not require the design changes on the sidewalk of downtown, but that was the last that I heard of it.
Okay. But you understand that SEGRA has applied to the HPC for a certificate of appropriateness to do an installation, I think, 244 Middle Street, Pollock Street, Craven Street, and the right-of-ways?
Correct.
Okay. And is the city comfortable with the HPC hearing their application, understanding that the HPC could approve, deny, or approve their application with conditions?
I am, yes.
I think that satisfies that requirement. Thank you very much, Mr. Williams.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming here this afternoon. We appreciate that on short quorum.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
How can we approve something that's not necessarily the final design?
Well, there's going to have to be evidence in the record for you to reflect upon and make a decision about whether you should approve, deny, or approve with conditions.
Plus, it's not uncommon for us to actually amend COAs after the fact. As we know, many homes have been amended because of changes in the design.
And we could, one of the things we could do is to continue it. That's another option, is it not? Approve it, disapprove it, or continue it?
Yes.
Yes.
That's one of the options.
So we could continue it till theirs.
You would have to have grounds for continuing it.
Yes.
So it may be prudent to review the application, hear the evidence from the applicant, and then you can make a determination at that point if you need additional information or if conditions are necessary.
Okay. Thank you for that question. So now, let's hear
Okay.
what you're going to share.
Start the summary of the application for the SEGRA proposal in the rights-of-way for the city of New Bern. And we just heard the owner's authorization to proceed with this hearing. And they have signed their application. That's a written description of the extents of the project. But these are some of the drawings that make it much more concise. So the project extends from the corner of Metcalf and Pollock Street here on the left-hand side of this image. And there's more detailed drawings in a minute, but this is the overview. Continues down Pollock Street on the southern side of Pollock Street. When it gets to the southeast corner of Middle and Pollock, it then turns along the eastern side of Middle Street and then goes down the Federal Alley to a location on the property of 244 Middle Street. And then the project also continues from the corner of Middle and Pollock Street, continues down the southern side of Pollock Street to the southwest corner with Craven Street, and then continues on the west side of Craven Street to a point about a third way down the block and ends there. So that's the overview. And the project is a new fiber optic cable line that is being placed underground using a boring method. And so they have a few places where the boring and the cables come above ground, and so they have, we call them handhold boxes to access and to restart the boring machine, I suppose, maybe, but at least to access the wires for maintenance at a future date. And so primarily our concern is only going to be about these boxes, because underground we don't really concern ourselves with what's going on underground. So here's an enlarged view of that corner of Pollock and Metcalf Street, and on the left side you see some numbers 1s and 2s and a small square box there. Make it quite a bit larger. So there's Metcalf. Oops, wrong way. Okay. And you can see there, the two number 1s are pointing to a square box with HH for a handhold. The red dashed line then is the fiber optic cable going underground underneath the sidewalk approximately. Continues down the block all the way to essentially the end of the block here, just before Hancock Street. There will be one more handhold box here, actually in the grass verge probably, the grass strip between the sidewalk and the curb. And then it goes again underground underneath the railroad tracks, and then we go to the next page, maybe, hold on. Oh, to the next handhold is on the other side of Hancock Street, and that's in the sidewalk. We will see some photographs of these in a minute, all these locations. You have to go to the next page and start on the left. So the cable is off the page on the left is that last handhold, and so the cable is now with this red dashed line going underground, under the sidewalk, along the parking lot and the church, along Pollock Street, and then all the way to the corner of, actually underneath Middle Street, and then to the southeast corner of Middle and Pollock. Right next to the Pepsi store. And there, the cable now goes in two directions, actually, from this handhold. First, we'll talk about going down to the bottom of the page here along Middle Street. So now this is the eastern side underneath the sidewalk along Middle Street till it gets to Federal Alley. There'll be a handhold there at that corner, and then the cable goes along Federal Alley to the back of the building, and in the grassy area we'll see that that's a boring pit there that will not have a lid to it, but then from there there's a short section that does go to a handhold on that property there at 244 Middle Street. So number 13 is pointing to that. All right. So that gives you that. Now we'll go back to, go back to the corner. Okay, I may have messed this up. Share the Pepsi store again, so now from the corner at the Pepsi store, the line will continue then down the southern side of Pollock Street in front of the various stores and shops there and run off the page here. So now we have to go to the next page. I'm going to go to the left first. And now go
Are
down.
existing city of New Bern utilities represented on this map at all?
Yes.
Okay. So when there was a
Yeah, those
cluster
are
of
the
these
various
things
other
together.
things. You can see it even shows trees and tree pits. So here, you can see this is now continuing along Pollock Street on the southern side. Underneath the sidewalk, there's a street light, for example, is 43. I don't know, 44 must be a drain inlet in the street. Another street light. These blue ones are some of the utilities, other utilities. But the red one continues, and at the souvenir shop there, there's another handhold. And then it turns and goes down Craven Street, past all of those. There's a couple of water meters and things here in the blue, the 53, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Continues to the end of their project at this last handhold. And I believe that's between two buildings, it looks like. No, this is the corner of the parking lot there at Morgan's, I believe. So there's a parking lot over here. At the median, so there's parking on both sides of this median. The black lines represent that, I suppose. And that's the end of the project there. And so now we'll look at that in photographic view. Oh, I'm sorry. This was just an enlargement of the federal alley portion. All right, so photographic view. So the very first one that we talked about at Metcalf and Pollock is already there. I guess terminating previous work. And so they're working from there forward. And the red dashed line again is where the proposed fiber optic line is to be placed. This gives an idea what's inside the box that's already there. And then the third photograph shows the view down the street along Pollock Street. You can see the area on the right. And then it's just going along the sidewalk. And both of those pictures, 3 and 4, number 5 and 6. So number 5 shows the handhold is coming up on the left of the sidewalk there. I'm sorry, I'm going to, things will be jumping around a little bit just to make sure we get it visible for you. So on the left, in the grass, that red square is where the first handhold will be, and then it'll go underground from there across the street, across Hancock Street, which is also shown here on this right-hand picture. And you see water and gas and also railroad tracks are involved there. All right, so now we'll go to the second row of photographs on this page.
So you're saying this one's already existing? And it's,
This box here is existing, but none of the rest of the work is existing.
so,
Anything indicated in black is existing.
And that box represents what the rest would look like too, correct?
Yes.
All right, and so then the first one across Hancock Street is this one here. It's to be located to the right-hand side in the sidewalk. And you can see the parking lot is on the right for the church. And then after that, it continues along the side of the church underneath the snow and ice.
I thought when they went under sidewalks, pavers like that they would be invisible when you're done. I thought the discussion when we had the design review was when you go under pavers such as along Pollock Street there, that the box wouldn't be a raised box, it'll be under the pavers and be invisible.
I think that's something they were discussing with the city, whether it was gonna be under the pavers or we could go on top of the pavers.
Okay.
But in no case would it be above flush. It
It
would
won't
not
be above flush where it's a trip hazard, by
Right.
any means, it'd be,
The only question is whether there's pavers there or a box covered.
right, exactly.
Yeah, either just a cover or the pavers.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So for example, in this photograph on the right, you can, it's another project, it's a different size, things like that, but it's essentially like that on the left there, on that photo on the right. Or like most water meter covers and things. All right, and I think we have, so it goes across Middle Street and ends up next to the Pepsi store here, right? And then it goes in two directions. To the right here is along Middle Street, and straight ahead is down Pollock. So we're going to look to the right first.
So Kim, before you leave that picture,
Okay,
can I ask a
yep.
question?
Yes?
So to the left of that, there's already some kind of box right there. So
Yes.
There's already something there.
So at what point do we have just boxes up and down the sidewalks?
Is the proposal that we're dealing with tonight to have the box under the pavers or not?
We prefer to have them on top of the pavers, and the reason being is
Or flush with the pavers.
flush with the pavers. So, reason being is, if another business wants to come in and access our fiber, we won't have to shut down the sidewalk and come back in and cause another mess, pulling up pavers, then resetting them. It becomes a traffic problem, honestly, when people are walking
Yeah.
as far, and it's easier to access and be able to maintain if there's an outage and we need to get into that box. It's easier to access those boxes. If not, we'll have to come down here, possibly in the middle of the night, and pull up pavers and to access the box if it's under the pavers. If we have to make a smaller box, right now I think it's proposed for a 30 by 48 by 36. We can go down to a 24-inch box, which is a little smaller. It's particularly what we usually do downtown, just because they don't want boxes all over the place, those huge boxes.
What was the smaller size?
24 by 36.
So this handheld one by the Pepsi store, it would be below ground? It would
It would be flush with the pavers.
flush with
So
the,
you would walk right over it, unless you're looking down, you wouldn't know you were
Okay.
stepped on it.
So they're currently proposing, just like all the other ones that are there,
yeah.
flush.
Which is different than what we heard in the design.
There's several, well, no, I thought when we came to the first meeting,
Yeah.
I thought we were all understanding they're all gonna be flush with the pavers. They're not gonna be under the pavers. Once the box is set, we can build the pavers back around the box,
There's
but the
no,
lid will still be exposed.
Okay.
there's no way aesthetically to keep the boxes on the left or the right of the sidewalk in order not to look like a jump hopscotch thing going up and down the sidewalk.
We can, depends on where the existing utilities are lying. So sometimes when we go down the sidewalk, there might be water, there might be power, and we have to fit our utility in between those. So we can't set a box on top of power, we can't set the box on top of the water, and we can't set the box on top of sewage.
There's just so much money spent to make the sidewalks aesthetically pleasing, and for the city to have to go now and make a checkerboard of utility boxes, it's kind of a step forward, 10 steps backwards, in my opinion. I mean, it's always that beautiful mesh of aesthetics and function, right?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Unfortunately, that's, the boxes have to go on top. If we have to bury the boxes under the pavers, and that's what, it's the city decide, that's what we're gonna do.
Is there any way to make the color, instead of concrete color, the same color as the pavers?
We have been looking into trying to match the box with the same color pavers, with a decorative lid, so it doesn't stick out, and it doesn't look like a concrete box there, so that's something we're looking into.
That would be my
But I'm hearing there is an option to bury them under existing pavers so they look just like it looks now.
That's what I'm being told. Before I came to the meeting, I was told that we might have to bury the boxes under the pavers. We prefer not to, just because access for other businesses downtown.
What do you
How
mean, access for other businesses, like for
For an example, the Pepsi store, if they decided they wanted service with Segra, then we'd be able to easily access and be able to build into their store and provide them
And
with
that's
fiber
your
service.
intention, is to provide services to businesses downtown, right? That's what
This build that we're doing is really for US Cellular, but it's allowing us to bring a larger cable in for businesses downtown to be able to have fiber access.
And there could be many more vendors on this same cable other than US Cellular, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Could be
Cable or
Verizon,
conduit.
could be
They
AT&T.
can pull a wire through whatever pipe you're putting down.
Once that pipe's in the ground, we can pull wire, we can pull cable through.
There's not room in the city's boxes?
There's several boxes down there
Yeah.
now, and it appears to me that Crown Castle's probably come through this before. I've seen a box of theirs, and there's a small cell pole, you probably don't even notice it, but it looks like a light pole. There's actually a cell tower right downtown.
So in
Their
the
boxes
top of the
are
Elks
like
building,
so.
there was, excuse me, so if every business chooses to participate, are these boxes at this schedule, is this capacity to service everyone, or will there be more boxes as you need more demand?
Really depends on where the business sits. So,
Okay, so if I can interrupt this here with all these questions, can we wait, we need to go ahead and get through the rest of this before we get to all of these questions. You'll have an opportunity to do that. So are you finished with your presentation?
No, not quite now.
Okay, so if you can finish with yours, then we need to go to conflict of interest,
Sure.
so we can
we'll
get
go
through
to
these other parts.
next page. So now, remember, we're going down Pollock Street now. I'm sorry, Middle Street. So this is the front of the Pepsi store, heading down towards Federal Alley on the left. On the right, we're now standing in front of Federal Alley, looking back to where it came from. So there's another handhold there. Then the cable turns down the alley, and it then goes down this alley underneath the ground, right? All this underground except for the handholds. When it gets to the opening at the end of the alley, let's see, what do we have here? That's another shot of that. Goes to the end of the alley, passes, all these trees, et cetera, in the process. Gets to the end of the building, and then it turns left and ends up in the grass there. And that's where they have what's called a bore pit.
it's a bore pit.
Which is not a box. It's a hole that they've actually used to actually do the boring to and from. And then after they're done, they just cover it back up with dirt and grass. So for us, it's inconsequential, except that to make sure that they do that. And then we're going back to the left side again. Because from that bore pit, there is a small section that goes across the grass. I think your plan showed another handhold back here in the grass.
That'd be the last one.
Yeah, and that's the last one on that segment. Oh, here's the photograph for that.
Whose property is that?
So that's the 244 Middle Street.
It's not the city's right away.
And there's actually a separate project, a minor, that was approved 2 years ago to actually have a cell antenna on this building at 244 with the, it kind of looks like a Q-tip, a large Q-tip, or like a big microphone, on the Federal Alley side of the building at the top above the parapet. All right, and there's some cables and such that go up the back of the building. All right, so then going back to the corner with at the Pepsi store, the cable's going under the sidewalk along there, continues along under the sidewalk in front of the new Prohibition expansion, all the way to the corner where we have the souvenir shop, and there's a new handhold there. All right, And we go back to the left again, and I think we need to go into another page. Where's this last page? Another page. All right. And from the souvenir shop, then it's going under the sidewalk again in front of the other portion of Prohibition, all the way down to the parking lot next to Morgan's, and that's the last one right there. All right. So I think there's, what, 7 total handhold boxes that we're talking about, maybe 8. I don't know if you counted the one in the grass in the back, but, and the one bore pit. All right. And, so this shows the building, the building on Federal Alley, where on the right-hand side is the grassy area, and then the cable goes up onto the roof and along on the roof, and then halfway down the alley there's that antenna. Okay. So, and I think this page has the, yes, there's a drawing of the actual box, but of course all we will see is the lid, or not, maybe not even the lid, depending what the decision is tonight, but that's essentially your box and lid. Okay. And that's it, except for our zoning and inspections, as none of that was applicable. So,
For this, so you finished with your presentation?
finally, yes.
Okay. All right. So are there any members that have a conflict of interest with this project? Anybody? I do, because I live at the corner of where this is going to start, and I got a letter. So I will
If you're
recuse.
anywhere along that path, like I guess you are, and
Did you get a letter?
No, we're not property owners.
you know, property owner.
Okay. Whereas I am.
So Tripp can run the,
So Tripp is, he knows, he's gonna run the meeting, so
So-
I'm gonna recuse
Is
myself.
that our only conflict?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I didn't see anybody else.
So what we need is a motion from the board to excuse Dr. Ruth from hearing this application.
So moved.
Do we
So
have-
moved.
Okay, we got a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We'll see you shortly.
Okay.
All right. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak against this application? I don't see any. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak in favor of this application? Again, there's no one who appears to want to make a statement. With that said, Matt, would you provide us with staff findings and recommendations, please?
okay. Okay, so now this is an application for SEGRA for the city of New Bern. The project address is 244 Middle Street and Pollock, Middle, and Craven Streets rights of way. There's obviously no historic property name or status for that, nor inventory description or sandbank description. And so the project is described to include installation of cable access boxes flush with the surface of the sidewalk in the primary AVC. We submit the following historic district guidelines as appropriate to this application. For utilities, 2.3.3 and 2.3.4. The statements of reason based on the information contained in the application and staff's judgment are: 1, the structure is a contributing structure. The work is in the dense fabric and tight weave development patterns. The project is within the primary AVC. The proposed design components and materials meet the requirements of the guidelines. The zoning administrator and the chief building official have had no comment on this project, and the project is not incongruous with the guidelines. So staff recommends the commission approve this application to include installation of cable access boxes flush with the surface of the sidewalk and the primary AVC.
All right, thank you, Matt. Are there any additional comments the applicant would like to make before we resume our discussion? You okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, so we were asking some questions. I'm just going to recap a little bit. Essentially, what I think is going to happen is these folks are going to dig some holes. They're either going, I think most of them are probably in the sidewalk, so they don't have to do any paving repairs, but ultimately those holes will be filled in and returned to their prior conditions. The purpose of the holes is so they can drill horizontally underground to interconnect all these boxes. And Matt's gone over the route that essentially runs in a, I'm going to call it a loop, it's not really a loop, but down Pollock Street, and it feeds into the businesses. So I think that's where we are, and we were having a pretty good conversation about our primary item of concern being we're essentially potentially going to see the tops of these utility boxes, which are similar to the tops of other utility boxes. They're called handholds that are usually in the sidewalk or in the street. So did I get that
That's right.
covered pretty well? So we were asking some good questions, and Candace and Annette were making some good points. And so where do we want to pick up from there?
I think you said there were 11 boxes,
I believe there's 8.
8 boxes, okay. I would draw a distinction between those that are going to end up being part of a concrete surface versus a paver surface. And I'd also wonder if I noticed the one in front of Mitchell's is just a couple of feet over to a grass area. I would think that where possible, we ought to have these things in grass or concrete, and if they're under pavers, they ought to be under pavers when we're done.
If there's a grassy area for us to go in, we absolutely do put it in the grassy area. And grassy area could be privately owned, and it's the reason it's out of the right of way. We have to stay inside the public right of way when setting these boxes. So I couldn't, like you said, Mitchell's, if that grassy area belongs to them, I can't just sit the box there.
Yeah.
I have to stay within the public right of way with these boxes.
You can't set it within the area unless you get permission from the owner. If you got, because there's one that we saw like behind Federal Alley that was in a grassy area that is out of the right of way.
That is out of the right of way. That is for the customer we're trying to serve. So what happens when we set that box, they gave us permission to do that. So we never set boxes in any private place.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Without
without the
permission, absolutely.
Right, without the so
Right.
we try to strategically place these boxes so we don't have to come back and dig up more pavers and things like that. So we'll try to set them along the way so we don't have to come back and set another box. Is why you see these boxes.
But the reason for not submerging them under pavers is that you might have to get into them again for future expansion. That sounded like.
We'll absolutely have to come back.
Yeah.
And pull them back up.
So,
I think, go ahead, I'm sorry.
so we're sacrificing the appearance for betting that we're going to need to come back in the future.
Yes, sir?
I think Candace made a good point in that keeping it to just the backside of the curb to the greatest extent possible and not, I mean, I know this is just for illustration purposes and not an exact, like, this is where this is going, but given not right in the main path.
In the middle.
Right, in the middle.
Right.
So that's one thing, Candace mentioned that, is to keeping them out of the main foot traffic area.
And trying to keep them out, so it goes back to the existing utilities that's already there. So we try to go in between the utilities, like we can't go over top of the power, we can't go,
Right?
we try to stay beside, it's down, when you're working in downtowns, and, we work downtown Wilmington, Charleston, all the other downtowns. It's a fine line because there's so many other utilities down there.
So if you're going down, you just can't make a turn over the top of whatever other utility is
We try not to do that.
Trying to.
So let's, I mean, do you want to, there's only 8, right? Do you want to go at them one at a time?
I have a
Yeah.
comment.
Yeah.
Before we would do that, I really have a comment. I am all for expansion. I am all for updating and making us into our current century, but I'm also all for appearance. And I honestly don't think that if this was any other city, then expansion may not even be an issue. But for here, I think putting those 8 boxes underneath the pavers is the way to go. I mean, it gives us function and it gives us appearance. We both win that way.
Okay.
We lose if we put those boxes on the top. And that's my personal feeling on it.
That's where I'm at.
All right, what other kind of questions do we have?
I have a question. Initially, you had said you'd put the cables at 5 feet, but now you're saying 4 feet. Was there a reason for that change?
I don't remember, was that
Well-
the last gentleman that was talking in the last meeting we had?
Yeah,
They should all be whatever's engineered on these drawings here. If it tells us to be 10 foot, we'll be 10 foot. If it's at 5 foot, I believe these are 5 foot.
so it's not 4 feet all the way. It's,
It could vary in depths, like when we go onto the railroad tracks, we have to go, I believe it's 10 foot under the railroad tracks and come back up.
okay, and I noticed some of the cables are going very, very close to trees. Is there any history of it destroying any, or bothering tree roots?
We haven't had any history of destroying any trees, and we try to keep them away from the trees as much as possible because of roots.
Yeah.
So we'll go deep enough under the trees so to stay out of its roots.
Yeah, and I noticed that the cable, there was not a lot of concern about it. What's the history with those cables? Do they last a long time? How do you get to them when you have to repair, or do you have to repair?
So only time we'd have to do an underground repair is if you have another utility company coming in and they bore through our fiber. Then we'll have to come out, we'll have to dig it up and then repair the fiber. And that's in a we call it a mid-span break. That means our cable's underground, we have no handholds or anything beside it. So we'd come in, and somebody hit us in the middle of that cable, we'd come in, dig that up, and we'd pull a new fiber through to the existing handholds that we already have in the ground.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, it's important to note that the purview of this commission are those elements that are above ground.
I realize
So
that.
we should
Agreed.
focus our attention there.
Agreed. All right.
And to your comment, I again say that it's a cost of business if you have to go back and add or expand. It's a cost of business. But our job here is to protect the appearance.
Absolutely.
All right,
I'm
do we,
all about keeping downtowns beautiful. I mean, I've worked in Charleston, I've worked in Wilmington, and I've worked in downtown Greensboro, any and all the downtowns. We prefer to have the lids on top, but they have to be under the pavers. We're not gonna have a problem with that either. It's just, it is what it is. Our focus is the customer and trying to get our customer built, and maybe at the same time, service some other folks downtown that like to have fiber in their buildings.
very good, duly noted. Okay, any other questions, particularly above ground questions?
Just one comment really. While we don't deal with underground things, if you have to dig down and repair it, then it becomes an above the ground.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
that's the reason for the question. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Okay, so I think we've probably asked all the questions we need to ask at this point. Before I ask for a motion, I think there are a couple of things we need to cover. The motion maker needs to determine whether the box is under the pavers or exposed. If the box is exposed, I suggest that we had some conversation about limiting the box size to about 24 by 36, and so that'll need to be in your motion. And then lastly, I'll have a condition, but we'll talk about that once we get to that point. Okay, so any questions? Everybody understand the application? All right, can we have a motion?
I move that we find the application for 224 Middle Street for certificate of appropriateness.
Wait, And Pollock, Middle, and Craven Street rights of way.
Oh, okay, and Pollock, Middle, and Craven Streets right of way to be not incongruous with New Bern's Code of Ordinance, sections 15-411 to 15-429, and New Bern's Historic District guidelines based on the following specific guidelines of finding of fact. Utilities 2.3.3 and 2.3.4. Statements of fact, the structures contributing resource to the dense fabric and tight weave development patterns, projects within the primary AVC, the proposed design components and materials meet the requirements of the guidelines. Zoning administrator and chief building official have reviewed this project accordingly. Projects not in Congress with the guidelines, with the condition that all handhold boxes that are in the paver area are submerged under the pavers.
Okay.
And what other?
Yeah, okay, so we've got a motion. You finished
Yeah.
for your purposes. Okay, do we have a second?
I'll jump on it and say a second.
And we got a second. And so with that, we'll have a little discussion, and we may have a little problem that Annette has already pointed out that 224 Middle Street isn't exactly within the city right-of-way, so maybe we don't have the authorization we needed earlier. So I would suggest that be handled as a minor after the fact, should there be a legal problem with our documentation for tonight being the second condition. So is that okay, Jim?
Yep.
All right. And Tony?
And agreement second.
Okay. So we've got an amended motion. Everybody understand the motion? Is there any other discussion on the motion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Okay, not hearing anything. Can we have a motion to issue a certificate of appropriateness?
So move.
And
Second.
And a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, congratulations.
Okay, thank you.
You got a certificate
Thank
of
you for that.
appropriateness. If you would just coordinate with Matt about that last little issue for the handhold, I think it was number 30, back behind 224,
The one on 244.
or
Middle Street.
244, sorry.
That's
Middle.
also a different property, and you don't have the
So,
owner's authorization for that work. Well, all they were saying is that that will now be a separate project with a separate COA, and that is handled by staff.
That handle is on that drawing,
that
handle is in the right of way.
So it's the one on 244 Middle Street.
244.
right.
US cell and get it.
No,
No.
Yes.
I need to get the authorization. Same thing.
And
Yes.
then we'll give you a minute.
But you don't have to come back to see me.
No, you don't have to do this anymore.
All right. So, now that we've got that straight,
It's all clean.
can I have a motion to bring Madam Chair back to the bench?
So move.
Have a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thanks for your cooperation.
Thank you.
So, I need to, because I was talking to the applicant, I need to know who made the motion to reseat.
I think Jim and Tony.
For the COA,
Thank you.
To allow Madam Chair.
To reseat, yep.
Thank you. We missed you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have finished up with the 244 Middle, Pollock, Craven completely. So now we have Avenue D, that's the one we have left, and then we will have to decide what we will do about 226 New Street if they're not here till after that. So we're going to be on item E, 407 Avenue D.
Correct. All right. So here we have the application, first page. The applicant is Jonathan Friesen for property at 407 Avenue D. The owners are John and Alice Yao. And he does have his owner's authorization here tonight. Yes. The project is described here in number 1, the guidelines in number 2, the materials in number 3, all the items checked off, is representing the owners, and he's signed it accordingly. And here is his owner's authorization form, properly notarized, actually twice, one for each owner. This is a site plan, and you may recall that we have actually seen this project, not this project, but this property before for a similar project. And we're going to be talking about this accessory building, 26 by 35 foot accessory building behind the main house. And here's the aerial view of that, same thing. So talking about this in the back of the property. And this is the site where that white trailer is, and the rest of the things back here that proposing it, the new accessory building. This is the house from the street, and you have to remember that the garage on the right is not part of this property. It actually belongs to the property behind the white fence on the right. The next photo shows then some of the surrounding, the context, the neighbors in that backyard, up to the backyard here. Immediately on the property line is a 15 by 20 foot metal sided garage or shed. And on the other side, so you see the white trailer here on the left, right? So on the other side of the backyard is another outbuilding. And then, of course, that garage that I pointed to earlier is also on that backyard. So they're proposing a 26 by 35 foot accessory building. The front of it, facing the house, would look like this. On the left side would be facing the house. The eave height is about 9 feet. And so these are all renderings from the manufacturer. And the back side, or actually the left side, I guess. And now this is the back. And those are all obviously not actual site background photos. This is a sample of a little bit more detail of the building, the style, but obviously not the one that's proposed. And here again, so now you see like the shape of that opening there, and the windows and door. And then provided some information about the door will be this kind of door here, wood, with these windows. And the windows will be these double hung windows. And they've provided a sample of a door nearby, a garage door nearby, that for the large door, they would like to do something like this. Or they're proposing to do something like this, sorry. And this is another similar one nearby. So a wood door. And then this is another photograph of one of the adjacent nearby outbuildings. This one from 1920 approximately. And then we have our zoning and inspections report. So for zoning, the proposal does meet the requirements of the land use ordinance. And the chief building inspector says that it will require a building permit, and to ensure that both building and foundation are engineered for 140 mile per hour wind speed. After that, we're ready with our recommendations.
All right. Is there anyone who has a conflict of interest on the commission? Anyone? Anyone who has any concerns about the completeness of the application? Hearing none. Sir, would you like to add anything else to what has already been said at this point in time?
I don't think so. I think it's pretty complete. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, we'll get to that later, but you don't have anything to add. Okay, so there are no proponents, there are no opponents out in the audience, so there's no rebuttal for that. There's no one in the audience with relevant evidence and standing in the audience. Seeing none. There's none who has any evidence or testimony from any state, city, or government body in the audience. Seeing none. Sir, could we go then to staff findings and recommendations?
Absolutely. Okay, so here we have for John and Alice Yao and John Friesen at 407 Avenue D. The project is to include the installation of an accessory structure in the Tertiary AVC and the National Register inventory describes it as house circa 1926. It is a contributing structure, and the description may be relevant. Similar in form to the house at the corner of this block, which turns out to be 404 Avenue C. This L-shaped frame house apparently dates from the late 1940s. It is topped by a side gable roof and has a projecting front bay, a large rear wing, and an exterior end chimney. There is a picture window to the right of the entrance and a greenhouse porch on the southwest elevation. Other windows are 6/6 sash. And Sandbeck had no description. So staff submits the following historic district guidelines as appropriate to the application. For accessory structures, 2.6.1 and 2. For design principles, 3.1.1 and 2. For walls, trim, and ornamentation, 4.2.4 and 5. Windows, doors, and openings, 4.3.2 and 3. For paint, 5.4.2 and 3. For contemporary materials, 5.5.1, 2, 3, and 6. Statements of reason based on the information contained in the application in staff's judgment are: 1, the structure is it's not a contributing resource. The structure is a
Property, maybe.
The structure is in.
Right, it's a new structure. I think it's trying to reference that the house is a contributing structure, though.
Yeah. Property.
Okay. The property contains a structure which is a contributing resource, there we go, in the tight weave development pattern. The project is within the Tertiary AVC. All components and materials meet the requirements of the guidelines. The zoning administrator and the chief building official have reviewed this project and commented accordingly, and the project is not incongruous with the guidelines. Staff recommends the commission approve this application to include the installation of an accessory structure in the Tertiary AVC.
Sir, do you have any final comments at this time?
No, I don't think. I guess I would just say one thing. It's pretty similar to, but bigger than adjacent structures. There are many metal buildings with vertical sides, and so we tried to match. We did vertical metal, which is similar to all the other structures. We tried to match, of course, the wood door that on one of the adjacent structures with the angle of the 45-degree angle top. I'm going to build exactly that door.
Okay.
To put in that space, and put a wood door on the side and then wood windows in the frame. So I'm having the building built just with openings.
Okay, all right, sir. Members, do you all have any questions, any comments for the gentleman at this point? Does anybody comments? Okay, go ahead.
So, John, I appreciate the detail that you've tried to add here to your building, your work building. So I appreciate what you've done with this. So the overhang, exactly, in one of the first renderings, it gave an appearance of a sort of a deeper overhang than maybe what we saw in earlier design review.
Yeah, correct. In the first design review, there was no overhang.
Right.
In the second design review, it added a foot overhang
Okay.
to match the structures that were adjacent.
And so in your description here, you say that you're going to add wood to give the appearance of craftsman style exposed wood rafters. I would ask the commission, do y'all feel like that's necessary? Do we want to make it look faux craftsman? I'm asking the question, I'm not sure, to go to the extent to give it that level. I appreciate all the things you've done to give it more detail and texture and depth and those kind of things, but I would ask the question, and I don't, maybe you're just married to the.
No, I prefer not to do the work, but I would if it needed to get approved
Right,
that way.
exactly. So that's why I'm posing the question to the commission to I would think that the applicant wouldn't necessarily want to go and give it this sort of faux craftsman look. I'm asking what other people think about that.
And I think maybe we talked in design review that a simple soffit on the underside would also be acceptable as an option. But as for an opinion, I think it's just important that it have some overhang as it appears in the graphic that's on my screen.
Yes,
I presume everyone else.
yes, I agree. That's a nicely that adds a lot to the building. Interesting.
Okay, you're satisfied with that? You satisfied?
Yes?
Okay. Right, any other questions anyone like to ask?
The only other thing was, I think, what was the floor going to be, John?
It's concrete.
Concrete, thank you.
All right, so if no one else has any questions or comments, I call for a motion. Do I have a motion?
I'd like to move to find the application for Avenue D, what's her address? Sorry.
407.
407 Avenue D to be not incongruous with New Bern's Code of Ordinances, Section 15.411-15.429, and New Bern's Historic District Guidelines based on the following specific guidelines and findings of fact. So Matt, bring those up for me and I can flip to it. Got it here on my screen too. Okay. Thank you, sir. Accessory structures, 2.61 and 2. Design principles, 3.1.1 and 2. Walls, trim, and ornamentation, 4.2.4, 4.2.5. Windows, doors, and openings, 4.32 and 3. Paint. Paint of 5.4.2 and 5.4.3. Contemporary materials, 5.5.1, 5.5.2, 3, and 6. And the findings of facts are that the structure is, the property is a contributing property to the historic Riverside neighborhood in the tight weave development pattern. The project is within the Tertiary AVC. All components and materials meet the requirements of the guidelines. The zoning and chief building official have reviewed this project and commented accordingly, and that the project is not incongruous with the historic district guidelines. With the one condition that it's the applicant's choice whether to have an overhang, a soffit, or if you choose to put the rafters, craftsman style rafters, that the overhang is sufficient, and that it's your choice to how to finish out that detail. Does that make sense?
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Peggy. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion passed. Do I have a motion to issue a COA?
So move.
So moved down here at the end. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second over here on this side as well. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, it will pass. So you can have your COA, and if you'll get with Matt on that.
Thank you, Ms. Cox, and thank you all for your help and design review as well.
Good to see you.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming to
Take
see
care.
us.
So was that Peggy that seconded the motion?
First motion,
Yep.
yes.
Thank
She
you.
was the first
I
motion.
thought so.
Yep. Okay, so now we have left 226, who there's still no one here for that. So how would you all like to handle this application?
Well, I believe we need a representative. for a quasi judicial hearing, do we not?
We do. So do we want to
So there
continue?
are two options.
Sure, Madam Chair. There are a few options before you. The
Okay.
first tonight is you could move to continue this application, citing the need for additional information from the applicant. And that motion could continue the application to the next regular meeting of the HPC, which I believe is in June. Option two is you could recess this meeting. By recessing this meeting, it does not end. And you can recess it into a time where the applicant is available to present the evidence that you need, and you can also have a quorum of your members. So I don't know if that presents a scheduling challenge, because we don't have the opportunity to consult with the applicant to determine when they might be available. But those are the two best options that I have at the forefront of my mind at this time.
Thank you, ma'am. So, Commissioner, which one of those, we've got two options, which one of those would you most
Well,
likely?
if
The first
I-
one means they would be at the next meeting, the second option being we would have to have another meeting with a quorum.
If I may at least add, two things. The applicant has said they can be back in town on Monday. And they also indicated that they've been trying to get the contractor to do the work for months, and now they're available now, but not a month from now. Not that that's exactly our problem, but a consideration.
Okay, do we have discussion about what y'all like to do?
Did they let us know in advance? How did we get here? Did they let us know they weren't going to be here?
No, they apparently had, they suddenly needed to leave town, and they were not prepared to provide someone to stand in for them. They let me know today via email, and then we've been working with them to see if we could get a notarized authorization, which we did achieve. However, the person that was authorized is not here, because you're not Mo. So that's where we're at. They've done their part, I guess.
They made a good faith
something
effort
happened
to
with Mo,
be
and
here.
miscommunication or whatever, so.
So a recess means that they want to do this between now and our regular meeting in June, so their contractor can start. That's
Yes.
what,
A recess would accommodate that schedule, yes, ma'am.
The recess means that we have to all get together again, gather more information, and we have to have a quorum. We can't do it
Right.
like as a
Yes,
design
in
review
that
type
case,
thing.
in that case, the information is actually that they will be able to be in person instead of having, and/or have that representative show up. That's the one piece that's missing.
and could that meeting be done electronically, Zoom? No.
No, ma'am,
No.
since it's a quasi judicial hearing.
No.
And
No, that's why I
this
keep
is the-
saying we've all got to get together again.
Right.
That's why I keep
Proposed,
saying that.
it's a shed. I would say we're not tabling, we're continuing. My opinion would be we continue.
It's a continue from me.
So continuing, that verbiage means that we're going to continue it to the next meeting,
It's
Yes.
1 month delay.
1 month from today.
And his worker is only available for 1 month. Is that what you said, Matt?
He said he's only available now, but a month later, he'll no longer be available. I mean, not immediately available, obviously.
But once we approve it, they can get it done in a year or two.
And
Yes.
COA is valid for a year and can be
Yes.
extended. Yes, sir, Mr. Bishop.
Okay, so I hear that the commission, what we want to do is to continue 226 New Street.
I'll make a motion that we continue 226 New Street
Okay, we have a motion
till
from
the
Annette.
June regular meeting.
Yeah, you can't say regular
It's
meeting, we
June
got to give all the
15th.
details. Hold on.
I think, at 5:30 PM.
We
June
got,
15th.
we got to give the details. So that'll be June the 15th at 5:30 PM in the City Hall courtroom. Is that all the details we need?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
A second.
all right. So there
For the-
has been a motion.
I'm sorry,
Is there-
Madam Chair, I don't know if I heard it from Ms. Stone. I know that was her intention to state the purpose for the continuance.
I'm sure she meant to say it, but let's have her say it again.
To hear the application.
To gather more
Since the
information.
applicant was not able to appear this evening and to hear the application,
To hear evidence from the
to hear
applicant.
evidence from the applicant.
Right, we need more evidence, right.
Okay, and
But-
I don't know who the second was.
Candace.
I'm getting to a second now.
I'm sorry.
Candace.
Candace, you were the second? Were
Yes.
second, okay. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, it passes, and this 226 New Street will be continued into June the 15th at 5:30 here in this courtroom. Okay? So we finished all of those businesses. The next order of business... Yep, yep. Okay, the next order of business, we have one item, the awards work group discussion, and I think you all should have this document in front of you. We've discussed it several times. I just wanted to bring it before you again. This is a collaborative effort, as we've done with other organizations in town. You are working with the
New Bern Preservation
Foundation for the, what's the name of that building?
King
I asked
Solomon
him.
Lodge. King
Yeah.
Solomon Lodge?
King Solomon, he didn't say that, King Solomon Lodge.
Which one you were speaking of?
Yeah, the King Solomon Lodge. So we've worked with other preservation societies here in New Bern, and this project has the New Bern, we have a representative from the New Bern Historical Society and from the New Bern Preservation Foundation. And this is the document and myself, and this is the document that we have come up with for this preservation award. So I just wanted to make you aware of this. Like I said, you've seen it several times. This is the final document that we are intending to use at this point in time. So just wanted to make you aware of that.
Isn't it?
Okay, new business, we don't have any new business.
Just a point on the underground glass thing. You know, since there is more discussion apparently with the city folks of potentially other design changes below or above ground, I would assume that it's coming back to us if the above ground part changes.
Yeah.
That's good assumption.
I think that's correct. Because that's
And they should
deviation from the CO.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
I think you said it differently than I would have said it.
How would you
You approved them to do underground boxes
Yeah.
covered by the pavers.
Right.
So if they somehow would like to revise that, then yes, they would have to come back.
Yeah, and I don't know what the full extent of their discussion with the city was on other aspects of it, but if it changed materially from what we approved,
That's
we'd
right.
expect to see them back.
Just like other projects, it would be an amendment.
Yeah.
And so already for next month, we have an amendment for a house, and we've had previous amendments for houses where, somebody changed a window location or a door location or things like
Yeah,
that. So,
okay.
Okay. All right, so there's no new business. Administrators
Oh, wait,
report.
did you ask for public comments?
I did not ask for public comments. We don't, unless you have something to say, we don't have any public. Do what?
That's our applicant
Yeah.
That's our applicant from earlier
Yeah,
with the
you can
additional
hand that to me
information
then.
for the conditions.
Okay. All right.
I don't know, I mean, if you need more, I can apply to the site plan, but I mean, that's the installation of the manufacturer.
Okay,
Okay,
I'll take a
thank
look
you.
at it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay.
Sorry, it went to that.
That one, just
So we don't have any public,
none.
just so you all know. 7A for the HPC Administrator's Report. This is a report on the majors that have been done, the minors that have been done. B of 7 is Extension issued since the prior regular meeting, there'd been none. Item C, 7C, other items or updates. Does anybody have any other items? Any other items, ladies, that you all want to bring up? Peggy, any other items?
I do have a question. It's closing in on the end of May.
The what?
It's closing in on the end of May, and my question would be, are we on track for regular elections in July? And how does that work?
So, your regular terms end at the end of June of every 3 years, right? So at the end of June. So there are 2 or 3 of you who are up for reappointment. I don't think anyone is term limited at this point, but I'm not entirely sure. If you want, I can either look it up now during the meeting or shortly after the meeting. I can provide that.
Not necessary during.
But, so the procedure then, or the process has been, with one exception, that you would approach the person who appointed you to reappoint you. And they do that at their next Board of Aldermen meeting, or the second next Board of Aldermen meeting. And you would want to have that happen before the end of June. So that should be coming up right quick. So I should probably send you all the email of the
If you could do that.
who that
so
is
we
at
would
this
know.
point.
What we need to do. That's a
That'll
good
also
question.
indicate who appointed you if you don't remember. And then once the new appointments are done, which would then be the end of June, the re-election of officers would then be in July meeting or the following meeting, depending, because now, as you may know, the aldermen, the slate of aldermen will change, and we don't know exactly when that is, do we?
Oh.
So that could be in July, as far as I think I heard rumor that it may be in July.
If there are requests for runoffs, I believe the runoff elections are scheduled for a July date.
Right.
But right now, we don't know if there will
So,
be requests.
however, that said, there's a continuous, there are aldermen seated every day of the year. So you either get one that's outgoing or one that's incoming, depending on, when you find out. And for some people, it might not matter, because you know that they will be seated one way or the other. I mean, that there were some uncontested seats, for example, or some that will not be a
So
runoff.
nominations from this board for positions then are submitted to you, and when?
Oh, so, so I guess it's up to the alderman to decide.
No, I'm talking
No,
about for,
it's up to the alderman to decide if they're going to reappoint someone or not. And if they're considering not reappointing someone, they go to the pool of applicants that the city clerk has on file.
I think I asked my question incorrectly. I'm talking about our chair and vice chair. We elect
Oh,
those.
no, that's brought up at the meeting.
Okay, so with July, is that right? I can't remember when that happened.
Well, that's why I was saying.
Typically, that would be in July after all of the seats for the HPC had been filled that required
You mean
reappointment.
all of the aldermen, all the seats for the aldermen have been filled?
What I'm attempting to say is HPC membership terms generally terminate in June. Generally, new terms begin in July. So if all of those seats have been
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
filled, reappointed, whatever, in July, then you'll have a meeting in July where you will nominate and elect your officers for the year to come.
And the nominations and the elections are all on the same day, same meeting?
Typically, they have been.
Yep.
Does the alderman know that we lost a member?
Well,
I don't know who it is, but
John,
yes, as far as I know, he has decided not to resign.
how do you,
Oh.
he's told
He-
us differently.
Yeah,
He doesn't know
He's-
that.
He doesn't know that.
I
He has told us
texted
differently.
him today, and
Oh,
he does
okay.
not,
So-
he's not aware that.
Ruth, can you speak to that at all?
That
I
might
don't
be
know what you're
a,
saying, John, what?
John Blackwater resigned.
yeah.
I just texted him during this meeting, and he is not aware that he's still on the board.
That may be an issue that should be resolved between perhaps the chair and the alderperson that appointed him, and that matter could be handled outside of the public meeting.
We can look into that. Okay, any other items at this time? Okay. Does anybody
Motion adjourned.
move for us to adjourn? Okay.
Second.
We have a motion right here. We do have a second. Who's the second?
Yes, second.
There's the second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, we'll be adjourned.